Hey guys, this is Whitney from Thanks for the Food, and today we're going to be making a Norwegian Bløtkake. Now this cake recipe is really great to make in the summertime, but we usually make it around here during 17th of May, which is Norway's Constitution Day. It's a day that we celebrate the signing of the Norwegian Constitution. This cake is comprised of layers of sponge cake, jam, cream, and then topped with fresh fruit. It's also eaten around birthdays, and I love it. First things first, in order to make this cake, you're going to need 3 eggs and need to separate your egg yolks from your whites. Then you'll need to put your sugar into 3 equal portions. You'll also need some flour, baking powder, you'll also need some salt, and then we're going to need milk and need some vegetable oil for the sponge. You'll also need some vanilla extract, and of course, this is Norway, so we need cream. You're also going to need a little bit of vanilla sugar and some jam. Now for jam, I use strawberry, but you can also use raspberry. You'll also need fresh fruit to top, which for me, I like to use strawberries and like to use blueberries. To start off with, we're going to want to make a meringue for the sponge. And that means to basically put your egg whites in the bowl of your standing mixer and mix them until they start to get foamy. Don't forget to get all the ingredients for this recipe at thanksforthefood.com. Now once your egg whites start to get foamy, you're going to want to add 1 portion of your sugar in, 2 tablespoons at a time, and keep mixing and mixing and mixing, basically until your egg whites get to the soft stage. Again, we're making this as meringue. This is going to give your cake a lift, but also give your cake those nice holes that allow all that cream and jam to soak into it. When you're done, your egg white should look like this. Set your meringue aside and start mixing together your dry ingredients. So add your flour, your baking soda, your salt to a bowl, add your last 2 portions of sugar, give it a quick mix, and then add in all of your oil and about half of your milk. Now the reason why you want to add in half of your milk is we're going to add in the rest of the milk a little bit later, but we don't want to overwork the gluten in this because again, we don't want this cake to be tough. Next thing that you want to add in is your 3 egg yolks. Give that a quick mix along with your milk and bring that together. And again, we split this so that we don't overwork the gluten and the cake doesn't become too tough. You just generally want to mix this until everything is incorporated. There's no more flour at the end of the bowl. Once you've brought your cake batter together, you're going to want to fold in your meringue. I usually do this by breaking it into 3 portions. The first portion is more or less just to start loosening up the batter, but the last 2 I fold in really, really well because then I end up with this really nice cake batter that's light and fluffy and gives me that really nice sponge texture that's great with this cake. Helps soak up all that cream in the jam. After you've brought your cake batter together, you want to portion it out into 2 cake pans. Now sometimes I add all of this to 1 cake pan, but recently I've been making my life a little bit easier by breaking it into when I bake it. That way I don't have to cut the cake into 2 equal portions, which also makes the cake level and makes it really nice. If your cake ends up unleveled, don't worry, it happens to all of us. I'm going to show you how to fix that. Add your cake to the oven and let it bake until a toothpick inserted in the middle comes out clean, and that's usually about 25 to 30 minutes. I actually made this cake twice, and you'll see the cake on the left is a little bit lighter, and that's the one that I ended up using, but the cake on the right side is perfectly fine, and you can use that if you want as well. Time to make the custard. You want to start off by whisking your egg yolks and your sugar together, then bring your milk slowly to a very, very soft simmer. Once your milk starts to get warm, you're going to want to add it to your egg yolk and sugar mixture little by little, whisking in between each time, and that's just to help temper your eggs and make sure that you don't end up with the dreaded sweet scrambled eggs. Once you've added all of your milk to the egg mixture and pretty much incorporated all of it, your eggs are fairly well tempered and you can add that entire mixture back to the pan. Again, the reason why we're doing this is because you don't want to end up with the dreaded sweet scrambled eggs. There's a very, very slim line between custard and sweet scrambled eggs, and we never want to cross that line. Once you've added the egg mixture back to the pan, continue to cook it on a medium heat until it thickens and it coats the back of the spoon. And then you want to strain your egg mixture through a fine sieve and then add cream to it. And the reason why you want to do it this way, again, is just to, in case you end up with any scrambled eggs in your custard, you want to strain those solid pieces out, and then you add the cream in last, which will give you a nice creamy finish. Now while our custard is cooling down, we want to go ahead and take our cakes and cut them so that they lay flat and they lay even. This will give us a really pretty inside cake, but it also makes it a lot easier to frost. I've used a cake leveler, but feel free to use a serrated knife if that's what you have on hand at home. While we're whipping our cream, we're also going to start slicing our strawberries. Now, instead of slicing them by hand or using a mandolin, which can get a little bit messy, my favorite tool for doing this with is actually an egg slicer. So the same egg slicer that you use to slice hard-boiled eggs slices strawberries really, really well, and they all come out the same width, and it's very, very easy to use. Now, if you're making this cake with a child, you might want to let them do this part because it's pretty fun. Your strawberries dried out a little bit on a napkin or a paper towel. This removes some of the moisture and make sure that they won't turn your cake pink. I like to use these 3 strips of parchment paper to make sure that my cake stand doesn't get too messy and that I don't have to ice my cake on something else and then put it back on the cake stand. It's just really complicated and totally unnecessary. If you put these in a triangle formation and then put the cake on top before you start adding in the vanilla custard, then everything works out really well. You don't have a big mess to clean up. So once you've got your cake on there, you want to add on your vanilla custard, and you really want to lay this on thick. Don't forget you're working on top of a huge sponge that's going to soak up all these flavors. Add your custard, then you want to add in any leftover strawberry pieces that didn't make it into the presentation pile, add on your jam, and then you want to start layering in your cream. You're also going to do this a second time, but make sure you spread everything out as evenly as you can, and don't worry if there's some spots that aren't even, we're going to fix those in just a minute. If you get done with your second layer and you notice that your cake is lopsided, go ahead and add a little bit more whipped cream just to help fill it out and even it out. That happened to me, so I just went back in with my offset spatula and filled the cake in with more whipped cream to make it more level. Also, you'll notice my cake looks like a hot mess. Don't worry about that. When you start adding on the whipped cream to the sides, it'll cover up all that extra drip, and don't forget you've got those pieces of parchment paper there to save your cake stand, so you won't have to clean up that either. But you'll notice now I just go around on the sides and just even everything out. I notice here that I had one more piece of strawberry jam showing, so I went back with my small offset spatula and just covered it up. To finish this cake, you want to decorate with your fresh fruit. Now, I've used strawberries and blueberries because red, white, and blue are the colors of the Norwegian flag, and ended up with a cake like this. This cake is great, everyone loves it, and it's a great way to celebrate 17th of May.